Sentí esa misma fuerza.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming out on a Wednesday night. My name's Jen O'Reilly. I'm so excited to welcome tonight's guest. He is the co-creator, showrunner, writer, and EP of Ponies. Please welcome David Iserson. Did I miss anything? Like a co-creator, showrunner, writer, and EP. Do you do the craft services or anything like that?
I made requests.
You supervise, that counts. Actually, in addition to all those jobs I just mentioned, you're a novelist, writer, producer, showrunner. I always love to go back to the beginning and ask, what was your first job in this business? What was sort of your entree into the world of showbiz?
My first job was I was like a receptionist at Miramax in LA. A Harvey Weinstein company that has a long beloved history, and being the first person that people saw when they walked in was,
Wow.
was stressful.
That's so wild. Oh my gosh. See, I love this because sometimes when people will be like, oh, I wrote my first movie and it got made, but
No.
starting as a receptionist is...
No, I started as a receptionist, and I had a bunch of just like jobs, like, you know, getting coffee and lunches and like TV shows and just I won some money in a game show like for 6 months, and so I was able to like write my first script because I didn't have to work for a minute. Yeah.
Which game show?
So it was a game show that that was like at the point when I won it. They had like started placing it at like 2 a.m. because it wasn't a hit, but you know they still like sent me a jacket. It was called Smush.
I won on that too.
Oh,
I'm not even. I had this weird feeling you were going to say this. This is where you would mash up words.
Mash up words.
Yeah, so
yes.
it would be like Steven Spielberg movie and Michael J. Fox's condition. It would be Jurassic Parkinson's.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't have that question.
Yeah, I won like $5,000. How'd you do?
I won $8,000.
Well, what? I thought $5,000 was the max, but
I'm telling you, it wasn't.
there was an issue because I remember I had to come back for reshoots because the last word couldn't. I said kayak and it was canoe, and the judges decided that no, kayak could count too.
Maybe that's why they gave you $3,000.
Yeah, that'd be
less.
Yeah. or because I'm a woman. Ooh, too soon. Sorry.
We're talking about real things.
Yes, yeah, sorry. So Ponies was co-created with you and Susanna Fogel.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was the spark or the initial inspiration behind, this idea that eventually became Ponies?
Susanna and I started just writing together. We wrote a bunch of things. We wrote a big comedy movie that got made, and then we wrote a bunch of things that didn't get made, and we were just trying to think about things that were interesting us. And we shot our comedy movie. It was in Budapest, and where we also shot Ponies. And there's just a lot in that city that still feels like it's stuck in the 1970s behind the Iron Curtain, and there was something that felt very evocative about like trying to be in that time and be in that place. And I started reading a bunch of these like nonfiction books about these books that are kind of exclusively like for your dad about the British Embassy and the American Embassy, and it's like the spy and the traitor, the spy who met a traitor, or like the traitor that was a spy. It was just stuff like that, and but like in that you'd start to get an image of what it was like over there for people, Westerners, in the Soviet Union. And then the detail that was most interesting was that despite what like Cold War fiction had kind of told us before, like the Americans and the British were very, very unsuccessful in Moscow. Like they were just not capable of running a spy mission there because they were always being followed. So they were just kind of willing to do things that were unusual. And they at one point did put an untrained woman out in there. And so Susanna and I just started talking about that notion, and we started talking about it being two women. And the idea of like, having abilities that maybe you were not CIA trained to have, but would just make you, make this pairing strong and capable of being able to accomplish something. And these characters kind of emerged. And we sold this show, like 7 years ago. So it's been a long process.
Wow.
To make it.
And I don't think you were even alive during the 70s, so I'm sort of interested in
I was just barely alive in the 70s. I mean, I come alive in the 70s.
You didn't miss anything, trust me. But I understand you had a lot of experts and historians to sort of help advise you.
We had a mix of experts and historians, and also just kind of had to just go with what felt right. Because the thing about, I don't want to speak for all people who lived in the former Soviet Union, but we encountered a lot of people that had very strong opinions that were often contradictory of the other people's that we encountered. So like we met a woman who ran a theater company in Moscow in the 70s, and she was explaining how like the pub works. That was in the last scene of this episode. And then we talked to a different person who read the script and read the scene that we wrote based on this, and like, absolutely could not be, and this is not true. So we sometimes had to just kind of go with our gut, and then we had people in the art department who were just analyzing all of the signs and just making sure everything felt right. And we sent somebody to we sent a Ukrainian refugee who'd worked with Susanna, like who was into like an archive in Kiev, and she got a bunch of pictures and things that we were able to pull from. So it was just kind of a mix of things that were true, things that felt true, things, because I think there was this feeling that we were trying to convey in the show is we are trying to convey what our characters are seeing, what our characters who feel like they know certain things about the Soviet Union believe about the Soviet Union, whether that is true or not. So in that is this kind of this mishmash of things that are like very accurate and things that are a little bit impressionistic.
It's interesting because I only, after watching this show, did I realize that you and Susanna had written The Spy Who Dumped Me, which you referenced earlier, which is actually a really good spy movie, just with a twist that it's also a comedy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so it like works as an effective spy thriller. And similarly with this, there's so much going on, but there's so many good mysteries and jaw-dropping moments. Were there some things that you wanted to be true to the genre, but you also want to subvert audience expectations in a way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that by having, we wanted this to be about two characters who wouldn't naturally become spies and wouldn't be effortless in it, but we also didn't want it to be about how bad they were, and we didn't want to be broad and silly. So instead, we just wanted to place these two women in situations that were scary, that were dire, but that they were going to have to just use their wits about them, and they were not going to be doing a thing that somebody who'd been trained would do. And so so a lot of it was just kind of presenting ourselves with a situation which we painted ourselves in the corner as writers and just wondered how we would do it. And I think, Bea and Twyla are so connected to Susanna and I are as people that like we just sort of used our own barometers for how this is, as opposed to trying to think about like, oh, like what we understand about spy is that they do this, or we talked to a CIA guy and he said this. Like we were just trying to be a little bit more instinctual because that's what our characters were doing.
When you say they're close to her, like you more B or she's Twyla, or it's a mix? So.
No. On paper, Susanna and I are both B.
Okay.
But I think that I think there is something that is a little bit Twyla when you kind of like get a little bit. I mean, definitely like biographically we are more B, but I think we both have both of those dualities, and we both can kind of tap into those people.
And obviously this is a show that doesn't work without the perfect cast, and you have your whole ensemble. It's fantastic, but the actual, I guess, the titular characters, the ponies, are these wonderful actresses, Emilia Clarke and Haley Lou Richardson. How did they both come to the role? This may sound silly, but like I'm curious if there was like a chemistry really between them.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to you a little bit like behind the curtain of casting a television show. Is like, no, when you're casting people who are famous, you're not going to get them to audition, and you're not going to have chemistry reads. So we were just really lucky. I mean, it was Emilia. We cast B first, and Emilia is somebody we both knew of, and I had seen a lot of, I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and Suzanne had never seen Game of Thrones, so like we were just kind of coming at her from a different way, but she made sense. She felt like the character in our mind, and we met her, and she really was very be-like. She was, and for a moment she hesitated in taking that role because she felt it was just too similar to things she had done, and I think we all realized that at the same time that she hadn't done anything like that. She just was like that, and I think she thought she was. It was almost like we all had to kind of go through that. Like, yeah, you do seem like this is so you that maybe it's too close, but yeah. So that happened, and then with Haley, I think when we'd seen a lot of like things that Haley had done, like it's a lot of coming of age, and it's a lot of like all-American girl, and there's a very specific kind of character that she often played, but when we met her, she just kind of came in dressed like Twyla, and she had the energy of Twyla, and that's probably closer than any character she's ever played to herself as well. But we didn't know how they would be together, and we kind of were both cast before they even knew each other, and we got them on a Zoom, like a private, just them. But I just popped on just to make sure the link worked, and I could just like see them just like laughing, and I was just like, oh phew, like we got it, right? And they love each other.
And I mean, I know the show probably wasn't shot chronologically, but maybe by episode, and so maybe as the relationship is developing on screen, it's developing off screen as well.
Yeah. I think by the journey that they went in because at the end, when you find them in the last episode, like you're finding two actors who are also exhausted because we've just been doing the show for 6 months, and it was very physically arduous, and they were away from home, and so their journey in the story of like just what they were going through as these women in the show really kind of paralleled like just the emotional journey that they were just going and making the show, which was hard.
Yeah. Did they get sent to like some sort of spy school boot camp?
No, because the characters didn't.
Yeah,
either.
that's true. That's
yeah,
true.
yeah. No, they didn't. But Amelia did have to learn Russian, and and yeah, so she didn't. I think that was also a thing that I think writing the character, because I don't speak Russian, I was just writing in English and getting it translated, and I was like, it's like when you read Anna Karenina, like they're very wordy, and so I'm just like, and so I'm gonna say in 20 words what you could say in 2 words, and then we get it translated, and then Amelia who's like, well, I learned Dothraki, so I can learn languages, and then she was like, oh, and then like we all were just in preparation realizing how hard it is, and how just the pronunciation is so difficult, and like she had a great like a Russian language coach or expert, and she didn't, by the end of it, she's not fluent in Russian, she just memorized all of the words, and she has this real kind of A student quality to her, and every night before we would shoot, she was like, this is the day I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. So we're just going to have to like figure out an escape plan. And then she always did it, And I was just like, all right, well, we'll record the back of your head, and then we'll have you like record your lines over later. But no, she got it perfect every time. But it was a journey.
And actors almost always bring something maybe unexpected to the role, or even better than you thought would be. Was there anything that they in particular brought that stood out to you?
I mean, I think that for both of them, I think the characters certainly could have made sense on paper with other actors, but I found that the just sort of balance of humor and sort of emotional depth that they both had were really, really special. I think they're, because they're both very funny, and then they're both like really, really soulful actors who with a lot of emotional understanding, and I think if you could deliver the scripts, maybe you could just get the funny, or you could just get the pathos, but having both of them and having it be characters that were so close to both of them as real people, I think we were just kind of like tapping into something very emotionally true with them and with their friendship.
And the show looks amazing. I mean, I wasn't in Cold War Russia, but from everything I remember or have seen, it looks so much like it. That's why I was surprised to hear it was shot in Budapest.
Well, it's a very, very, very Soviet influenced city. Yeah.
But how did you work with the production designer to really make it feel so authentic to that period?
Yeah, I mean, we had this production designer, Sarah K. White, who is just incredibly vigilant and vigilant, and she worked hard and tirelessly. And we made this decision very early on that we wanted it to visually feel bold. We've seen other Cold War movies that are just gray and drab, and that is just how that time period was portrayed. But we would look at pictures and movies and things from that time, and instead, the Soviet Union was maximalist. It was a weird kind of almost like funhouse mirror interpretation of the American 70s, and so we really wanted it to feel as colorful and as pattern on pattern as possible. And so we had this great production designer, this amazing costume designer, Anastasia Magutis, and we great DPs, Callan Green, and so we just every turn we were just making we would find a location, and we were like, let's just make sure that we're shooting this to its most beautiful way. We found the place where the Christmas party is, and we go back to that again in a later episode. That was in an abandoned train union hall that was just like a 1970s disco that was kind of perfectly preserved, but it was condemned, and we had to do, and the studio was like, can we have a safer, less nice choice, but we made it work, and we made it safe, and we were just trying to make those decisions at every turn, what can we do that is just cool and beautiful, and so we just had a team that was willing to do that.
As I mentioned before, this show is so many things. It's genuinely thrilling and shocking and exciting and very, very funny. How do you sort of, I was going to say balance those tones, but sometimes they're all happening at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's also really hard to season one show because that tone just exists in mine and Susanna's mind until it's out there. We can't say to everybody, just watch these 3 episodes and you'll know. But I think it's this weird kind of seasoning thing where we know it's too pushed or we know it's not pushed enough. But I think some of the rules that I had is that no one is going into a scene saying a joke for the purpose of the joke, but this could be a story about funny people in dire situations, which is how I experience life. I mean, I think people I think that's my perspective. That's people I know, people who make jokes in a tragedy, people who laugh at a funeral, that is who our characters are. That is what I identify with. And so Twyla is going to be funny as if this was a comedy, but emotionally that is a shield that she uses, that is a way of her putting up walls around her vulnerability, but it still has the effect that she is making a joke in a dire situation. And so it is the version that feels most true to how I see the world. So, but it is it's a high wire of tone, and and it's also why I was on set all the time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it just didn't tip in the wrong way.
Any room for improv or?
Oh yeah. They improvised, but yeah, there was just a lot of. I mean, Vic Michaelis, who plays Cheryl, is just a great improviser. Yeah. So there would be opportunities for Vic to improvise when possible, and I also improv in Russian, and or there was a little bit. We occasionally would have a Russian actor that would improvise, and then I would have to ask a translator. I was like, "What did he say? Can we use that?" And we usually couldn't.
I also just personally find really serious people hilarious. They take themselves very seriously. I mean, and that's why I think Adrian Lester, I don't know whether he's trying to be funny, but he is. The more serious his character is, the harder I laugh.
I think that I think with him, it's so. I mean, the character has a wit to him, and he's figuring out what he's going to say, 3 steps ahead. And there's something about that. I briefly worked on Mad Men, and I think that show maybe didn't feel as laugh out laugh out loud funny when you would watch it, but the table reads were always so funny because the banter had the rhythms of comedy, and I think that is sort of like how Adrian's character makes sense too. Like I think on the page his stuff is funny, and then when he's delivering it, it is quick and it's thoughtful, and it has the essence of comedy without necessarily like taking you out of the moment and making it seem like he's trying to make you laugh.
This, although it is very funny, it's also, you know, you're, like you said, you're shooting on location, long hours, some action, some dark places they have to go to. What sort of was the atmosphere on set?
I mean, the atmosphere was very summer camp, actually, in a great way, because we were a group of people who all away from home, and we all went to a different country, and we were all kind of like living in the same street in Budapest, and so there was something that felt very like, you know, everyone in LA was asleep when we were awake, and so there was just something that felt like, okay, we were just in a bubble doing it, and then we just had a cast that was very theatrical, and that would make up songs in between takes, and you can find some of those songs that they've posted online. They made a song called Ray's Butt, about the character of Ray's Butt, so it was a joyful set.
What was the most challenging thing? I don't know. Was anyone seeing this for the first time tonight? I'm just so curious.
Oh, okay, wow, so, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
All
that's
episodes are available
on Peacock. Yes. So I don't want you to give anything away just to be safe, but was there a scene or a moment, or sometimes it's just, you know, the grueling hours?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll give a challenging moment. And so there is an episode 7, or episode 6. We're in this hotel, and we found this beautiful it's always condemned hotel called Hotel Budapest that was built in the 60s, and that was like about to be destroyed. And, you know, so we were able to give it just give it one last, like, you know, life breath, and so we, you know, everything could go wrong at this deteriorating hotel, and then our actresses got the flu, and like we would just keep having to push it a little bit, and like just before the demolishing started, and even like we had to reshoot a scene after like some of the hotel got demolished. I mean, it would be that, and then there was just challenges, like there just wasn't enough help, and there wasn't enough time, but like we just you just have to see in advance. Like it's really hard to make TV, and it's really exciting to be able to do it. But like, you know, you always have less money than you want, and you always have less time than you want. And I had baby twins in Budapest with me, and that was hard. And it was just
wow.
It was crazy times.
Well, twins are easier because they look after each other.
Oh yeah. So we just put them in a Soviet era rusty playground and just let them have at it. But at the end of the day, they were still there.
Well, I'm so sorry we're out of time, because I know you're going to tell us everything that happens in season 2.
Yeah. But we have a lot of great plans for season 2, so I'm really excited. And hopefully we get one.
And I do want to remind everyone, all episodes are streaming on Peacock, and there's a reception right across the way. Please join us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everybody.